The late 90s and early 2000s were a great time for kids movies. We got a lot of good stuff. Of course, Ants, even got Shrek, Prince of Egypt, Spirit, and of course, Chicken Run. Chicken Run was one of those claymation movies made by Peter Lord, and it was his first feature film. He was definitely most known for making the Wallace and Gromit shorts, and I think a lot of people know what those are. I didn't really care too much for Chicken Run. To be quite honest with you, it kind of looked creepy when I was a kid, but I definitely know that people love this movie, and watching it as an adult, definitely can say it is a good time. With Chicken Run's success, it happened to get a few games on Game Boy Color, as well as the PS1 and the Sega Dreamcast. And I did get this game just recently, and I played all the way through it, and it's definitely a unique kind of game. I've heard some, good things and such about it, so wanted to check it out for myself to see what it's all about. So, sit back, relax. I'm here today to review Chicken Run for the PS1. Chicken Run was released in 2000 for the PS1. It was developed by Blitz Games and published by Eidos. I've talked about Blitz Games a few times on this channel, and they did in fact make Frogger 2 for the PS1 as well as Glover, and I've mentioned those before, but they also made Action Man Operation Extreme. I reviewed this game not too long ago. If you haven't heard of it or decide you want to, check this one out. Won't go too far into the plot of Chicken Run because I'm assuming if you're watching this, you've probably seen the movie. But a brief summary, it's a bunch of chickens that live on this farm and they make eggs for these people, Mr. and Mrs. Tweety. And basically, these chickens are very ambitious, and Ginger, the main chicken, she wants to find a way to get out. So she goes with these people to compose these plans, and basically they keep on failing with these plans, so their goal is just to get the hell out of the chicken farm and be free. This game is actually a stealth game. There's a little bit of platforming involved, but most of the time, you're going to be walking around the farm into little buildings and like the barns and such, and you'll be sneaking around quite a bit. This game does support DualShock controls, and I gotta say, probably one of the best ones on the system. I wish I had this in my DualShock video, because the left stick moves you pretty well in 360 motion, and the right stick actually moves your camera. Holy crap, that's so innovative. But yeah, the right stick, it'll actually move your camera all the way. Pretty cool. X is your jump button, and you can actually double jump, but don't worry, you can't jump very high at all. Square is your action button. You'll use this button to pick up items and such. Triangle is your open inventory, and you'll be using that to go kind of your main menu, sorta, and you can see all your inventory such there. There's 6 items you can hold, and as well as your map. You can use R2 and hold that down to do sneaking. You'll need to do that sometimes in some areas. L2 can cycle through your inventory. Not totally necessary to use this though. And if you don't have a DualShock and you just have like a regular digital controller, you can use the L1 and R1 buttons to turn the camera. The whole game is divided within 3 acts, and the acts get longer as each one goes on throughout the game, but the main objective pretty much is you have a plan and you talk to these chickens and they'll tell you about the plan and they'll tell you about the items that they need to come up with these plans and build the machines or contraptions. It is your job, Ginger, to go out there in the farm and go everywhere to find these pieces. For example, at the beginning of the game, you gotta find like a butter knife and some like wire or something like that, and you make these wire cutters, and you can go around and use that to get to another area in the game. Or another section, you need a rusty spoon and you'll have to dig underground to make a tunnel to go under the fence. Aside all the items that you have to find to do your plans with these chickens, you have some collectibles in this game. One of those is being these little pieces of paper, and they actually build your map. Your map is not that big in this game, it's just one huge level, it's a farm, but it's kind of nice to have that to know where you are and what's around you. You can also find Brussels sprouts everywhere, and what they do is the enemies, which the only enemies in the game are dogs, and you can use the Brussels sprouts to lure them to get away from you, that way they don't catch you. It comes in handy sometimes, you don't have to use them. I used them in the beginning of the game, and then I just stopped using them. They weren't working for me, at least. The last collectible you'll find are bonus pictures. You don't have to pick those up, but if you want to use those and access them at the main hub of the game, you definitely can. Dogs are the only main enemy in this game, but you also have Mr. and Mrs. Tweety, and you'll see them sometimes, not a whole lot, and they'll be guarding like doors or patrolling the area, but most of the time you'll just see dogs, and you definitely don't want to get in their scope because they are slightly faster than you, and there is no combat, so you cannot fight back at all in this game. So you got to do whatever you can to hide in boxes, sneak around, and stay out of the light. The light will definitely get you in the red. The minimap down below, though, helps you a little bit. It's not the greatest minimap in the world, but definitely keep a lookout on that. You'll be able to see all the enemies around you on that minimap, as well as items that you can pick up. They also indicate on your radar. There are no lives in this whole game. Infinite continues. You just respawn from the area that you left off whenever you get caught. But the drawback is whenever you do get caught, if you have items in your inventory, you'll lose the last item that you picked up, and it goes back to the original place of where you found it. So gotta be mindful on that. There are different playable characters in this game. Other than Ginger, you can play as Rocky, and they pretty much play exactly the same, not much difference here. And then you get one part in the last act of the game, you can play as those rat guys from the movie, and it's kind of cool because it's like a puzzle platformer in a way when you play as them, only in a small portion of the game. When you play as them though, you go through certain sections where you'll need one to help the other, and I kind of like that concept. It gave a little bit of spice to the gameplay. On top of all that, there are different kinds of levels that you can play in the game. Like this one here, you're a mannequin, and it looks like a Crash Boulder ripoff for a second, but you have this little balance meter at the bottom, and you gotta be in that balance in order to not fall apart, so it does take a little bit of getting used to, and a little bit of strategy. You've got this platforming section where you play as Rocky in this grinder area, and that's about the only real platforming section in the whole game. It's the only kind of level like it, so... And if you want to call it the final boss, there's no boss fights in the game. The last level of the game, you're on that little plane that you make, and Mrs. Tweety is trying to catch y'all on the lights that are attached to the thing. So you got to run into stuff to knock her back. That way you buy time to fly out of there. On top of all of that, there are mini games too. After you do construction and get all the pieces for those chickens that need them, you go to a mini game, and they're all different, and I appreciate that. Every mini game in this game is completely different. I'd say there's like over 5 different mini games total throughout the playthrough. You can also save the game at any time. If you go to building 1, you'll actually go to your hub where you can see your bonus pictures and gallery and all that stuff. That's where you save the game, and all your progress is kept there. Chicken Run on the PS1 was definitely a decent playthrough. The game all the way was kind of fun, and it had a lot of cool variety going for it in terms of the level design, as well as the mini games they added, and it was just fun in general. I think it just stuck well that Chicken Run, a video game, was a stealth game, and it definitely worked well, and this might be one of the games that Blitz Game has made that's one of the best. I really only have one major complaint, and it's towards the end of the game. Just to briefly put it, when you play as the rats, to play as them, you need 6 eggs. You gotta do a mini game to get those eggs, and they take up all your inventory. Once you do that, you get the eggs to the rats, then you go get the items, and then you're done, right? Well, when you come as Ginger, if you get caught, you lose that item, like I told you earlier with the dog. Here's the problem. You need the eggs again to go back to those rats. So you gotta backtrack, clear your inventory, get the eggs again, and then go back to the rats and try again. It's not hard, it's just freaking tedious. And if you make one mistake, you gotta do it all over again. So that kind of annoyed me. Other than that though, it's a very solid game, and if you like stealth games, well, definitely check out Chicken Run. It's pretty cool. This game's pretty much trapped in its own time period on the PS1, and it's also on Sega Dreamcast if you're a Dreamcast person. And on the PS1, this game's right now about $20 or so complete. That's a little much for a game like this, because this game you can probably beat it in a couple hours or so if you're good enough. But if you do like PS1 games, you want to add it to your collection, well, there you go. It's a $20 game. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this kind of content, be sure to give it a like. You got something to say? Leave a comment down below. And of course, if you want to see more content like this in the future, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Thanks again for watching. Take it easy.